Hey guys, welcome back. And today we are going to put that monstrosity on the car. That is an old 421 manifold that, and they never really worked that well because the bottom tubes were real small. I tried enlarging them and it still didn't seem to work very well. But so I just did this thing as a proof of concept, and it's horrible. It's hideous. The welder that I had back then was a crappy welder, and it's about triple welded around just to get it to seal because it wanted to leak, and it was an old MIG welder. So you can make your jokes and make your comments now, but this thing, as hideous as it is, actually works really, really well. There's a guy who sells these things for about 600 bucks, and this one here cost me about 40 bucks. So, and it makes a little over half of the horsepower he claims. I think his header, it's a long tube design, makes like 20 wheel horsepower, and this thing here makes pretty close to 15 wheel horsepower, as ugly as it is. So, like I said, I built it as a proof of concept just to see if it would work and how it would work. And I thought, well, someday I would go back and I would buy some nicer tubing and give it to a buddy of mine who does some TIG welding and try and make it look real nice. But I can't really argue with the results. I can't. I don't think I'm going to get any more horsepower out of it than than what I'm getting. So just by making it look nicer. I mean, the tubes aren't even length or anything. It's pretty hideous. So go ahead and then leave the comments down below. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. So we're going to put this thing on the car today. And the reason why, of course, in the last episode, we got the motor down in, got all the motor mounts hooked up except for the dog bone on that side. And the very next thing we want to do is put the exhaust on. And the way this thing's designed, you have to put the header on before you put the front subframe piece under the K member. You have to do this first, and just because of the shape of it and everything, you can't really get it down in behind the engine very well. So I've tried and tried, and I suppose if you disconnected some of the motor mounts and rocked the motor forward, you might be able to get it in there. But with the car all tore apart, it's easy enough to just slide it up from underneath, and I'll change the camera angle. You might get bumped around a little bit, but you'll get to see what we're doing. So I'm going to move you over here to behind the motor. Let's see if we can get you situated in there where you can see what's going on. And you can see I already got the studs in. And if you did everything correctly, whenever you put the studs in, they should screw in with your fingers. And after they bottom out, just take your ratchet and just kind of snug them up a little bit. You don't have to go crazy with those. And now for the next order of business is the exhaust manifold gasket. Now these gaskets, you can actually reuse these a couple times. You can reuse them a couple times. And you can see I've just got a real thin layer of the copper-based silicone on there. And the Indy cars use that on their turbo housings. So I figured, well, if they can use it on their turbo housings, I can use it on these gaskets. So this is, I think, the third time this gasket's been used. So this will be the last time. After this, I'll toss it. But you can reuse these a couple times if you coat them up a little bit. So, and there is a right and wrong way to put this on. It will not go on the wrong way. And let me show you. I'm going to turn it around. And what happens is the studs will not line up properly. And I think they do that so there's a aluminum surface here and more of a fiber surface. They want the fibrous surface going toward the cylinder head. So we're just going to slide that on. Just like so. And we do have to put the header on from underneath the car. The reason why I like to do the header next is because I hope you can hear me up there, but every single thing after this that I put on the car will be based on the location of this header. So where I route the fuel lines, where the the shifting cables get routed. All that stuff will be dictated by, let me get this around here, by the position of this header. Try to put it in the wrong place. There we go. So the shifting cables go underneath. Actually, I have a little tab down here. You can use some mechanics wire on to pull the shifting cables out of the way from the. There we go, and now it's there. And pull the shifting cables out away from the header, and what we're going to do is get the center one up. So once this is bolted in, the very next thing after this will be putting the K member on, because after you get the K member on with the dog bone, you might have to rock the motor just a little bit, and that could influence the position of the fuel lines or the shifting cables. So that'll get our final position set with the motor, and then the next episode we'll start routing the wiring harness. We want to keep that away from all the heat, and we'll route the fuel lines. And there's no shield on this, obviously, to shield anything from heat, so we got to try and keep a little bit of distance between this and everything else. So this is just a matter of putting the nuts on. Let's get them in there started. I like to get them all started first. I hope you're seeing this okay, because I'm not going to do another shot with this. This is it. Now, whenever you put the studs in, the one on the front of the motor here, towards the front of the motor, that's a longer stud, and I think they did that from the factory to make it a little bit easier to get the nut started, because the tube or the exhaust manifold comes out quite a ways. So we got them all started. Pull the header up against the block, get the center nut in there nice and snug, and it's already nice and snug. So then we're going to finish bottoming these out. Get the threads nice and clean and everything, so the nuts are just turning on with your fingers. And all I did was to get the threads clean, you just run them on the wire wheel, on the bench grinder with a wire wheel. So now for these bottom ones on this particular manifold, you have to use a wrench that looks like this. You can't really get a socket in there. But first thing we want to do is get these upper one, or the center one here, and we're going to work our way to the outside. And the factory has a regular torque sequence for these, and I don't want to go crazy on that just yet, and actually pull it in a little bit tighter. Like I said, it has a torque sequence. We're just going to slowly work our way from the inside out. Now loosen up a little bit. And with this wrench with the dog leg, it's nice is it's 13 millimeter on one side and 15 on the other, so I can just go ahead and right in there and just flip it around and use it on these other nuts here. This side. And we're going to need a socket for this last one here. But if you ever get a chance to pick one of these up, I just got this not too long ago. It's made by Cobalt. I picked it up at Lowe's, and it's got this swiveling head. And I always thought in the back of my mind I wanted one, but you just never took the plunge to get one. Always just kind of made do. And I tell you what, ever since I got this thing, I absolutely love it. It's my kind of go-to ratchet. Has a longer handle on it, and I found out that I think it's Mac. I think the people who make Mac tools also make Cobalt tools. I'd have to look that up to double check, but I think that's who makes them. I did find that one time. I think it was Mac. So I thought it must be pretty decent. And that's a little loose, and it's down in there quite a ways, so get it down where it starts to tighten a little bit. I'll tell you what we're going to do is we're going to put a little extension on that, and Your regular ratchet would probably work with this. You don't need to really articulate the head, but going the wrong way. But it does make it a little easier to reach because the handle comes up out of there a little bit more. You can see how you can kind of, I hope you can see that. So just get a little bit of torque on there. Then I'm going to go back, starting from the center. You don't have to go crazy with this. Just snug it up good. And after this motor goes through a couple heat cycles where it's warmed up and it'll cool completely down, and warmed up again and it'll cool completely down, I'll go back and I'll check these just to make sure they're okay. Make sure they stay tight whenever you're dealing with exhaust. And I don't want any, whoops, see that one there loosened up. I don't want any surprises, any exhaust leaks back here. Nothing like that. So I'll try the wrench on this one. Actually, the wrench works okay. Just can't move it real far, but it's progress. And we'll go down through it one more time. I have used torque wrenches on these, but it's a little difficult to get them on some of these nuts. A little tough. So, there we go. And there we go. All right. All right. Hopefully you found that interesting and informative. And next time, I'm going to grab this. Next time we work on it, we're going to start routing the wiring harness, and we'll probably route the shifter cables next, and then we're going to do the fuel system. And this car actually has an adjustable fuel pressure regulator on, which is actually kind of not necessary. But I thought maybe at one time there was a problem with the fuel pressure in the car. So I put that on where I could put a gauge on it, and it actually was okay. We set it to the factory pressure. I think it's around 42. I would have to double check that. Set it to fuel pressure, and took it to a dyno, and I thought, well, we could play around with the fuel pressure to see if it can make any gains, and I moved the pressure up and down 2 psi at a time, and actually made no gains whatsoever. So it actually made the best power with factory fuel pressure. Go figure. So anyway, that's our our generic, ugly, hideous exhaust installation. That thing is really, really bad. I admit it, but it does seem to work and has kind of a cool sound. A lot of guys criticize it, say it sounds like a Honda, but we're not haters. We're not haters here. So anyway, yeah, take a look at that thing. Horrible. If you want to see more crap like that, you know what to do. Hit the button. See you next time, guys.